Just wanted to welcome everybody here. Thank you all for coming. Help us celebrate the life of Jakob Vali, or Jake. I knew him as Jake. So just again, wanted to welcome everybody. I will quickly run through what we're going to do with the agenda here, and then I'll be handing it off. Tammy is going to speak. Jake's daughter is going to speak next. And after that, I'll introduce Rod, and we'll go through a short video, I think a 12 or so minute video. And then Adam will say some words, and I'll be back up here, and I would love to also be able to welcome anybody else. If anyone has any stories you'd like to tell, we could talk about this over the next hour or so. Again, just remembering the celebration of this great man's life. I won't start to say enough right now. And then we'll finish it off with a slideshow. And both of the items, in case you see on the, please grab a program, because there's a QR code on there in case you miss any of the slide presentation or the video. I think you guys can watch at your own leisure as well. So right now I'd like to introduce his daughter, Tammy. Come on up. You got this.
I'm a little shorter. Thank you.
There you go.
Thank you. Thank you all for coming to honor my dad today. My dad never liked being the center of attention, but I know he would have been happy to see so many of his family, friends, and colleagues here today. My dad was 94 years old when he passed. He lived a long and happy life, and he accomplished many things, both large and small. He loved his family, he loved his grandchildren, he loved to be around our friends. He was genuinely interested in all of us. His grandkids were his everything. He tried to attend the events they participated in. He relished just being around them. It was often joked that his oldest grandchild, my daughter Rachel, would never learn to walk because my dad never let her down. He was interested in everything they did, and he was able to enjoy them all. And of course, he always spoiled them. Our children loved their Dada back. I was touched to see how caring and attentive my kids were to my dad as he grew older. It was a sweet relationship. My dad was born the 10th of 11 kids and eventually became the patriarch of his enormous family. At the time of his passing, news literally spread across the world within hours. Most of the callers told stories of how my dad helped them in some way and how it changed their lives. He cared about so many people. His satisfaction in life came from helping others succeed. He never talked about what he did, but taught us to always help others. We continued to learn more about people and causes he supported. He had a drive in him that changed direction as he aged, but never diminished. Anything he set his mind to, he eventually accomplished. He never gave up. He loved life. He loved a challenge. My dad was the smartest person I know. Rarely was there a question he couldn't answer. I was his daughter, but at some point I became his friend too. He was my protector, and eventually I became his. He was my #1 fan. As time went by and as many of his friends passed away, we were able to spend more time together. We enjoyed each other's company. He taught me how to cook Indian food, always telling me, add more spice and to be bold. Not all these meals turned out well, but we had fun. We just got each other. Evidently, as a young boy, he was known to be a practical joker. He and his friends would pee in the school ink jars. Hard to see my dad doing that, right? Another time, he tied bed sheets around his younger sister and dangled her out of a 3-story window. At an early age, he also stood up for what was right. Back in his grade school years, he advocated to have that same younger sister be admitted to school. She was the first girl in his town to enjoy that privilege. Shortly before I got married, I was lucky enough to travel to India with my parents. We traveled through the country, seeing the sights my dad had never seen. We visited the Taj Mahal and stood at the southernmost tip of India, looking at Sri Lanka. We stayed in a palace and spent a few nights in a stone hut in the jungle. We rode elephants and tracked exotic animals. It scared the heck out of me, but my dad loved every moment of that adventure. He was like a little kid, introducing us to his favorite exotic fruits and stopping at various villages where we handed out American specialty toys and cosmetics to the thrill of hundreds. Growing up with an Indian dad and an American mom was not always easy and was different from my friends' families. My dad wouldn't let me date until my mom convinced him dating in the US is much different than in India. We had rice with every dinner. I got so tired of rice that I boycotted it for years. Out of respect for my dad and his beliefs, I've never had a pulled pork sandwich or a pork chop. Am I really missing anything? I don't think so. At age 13, I went to India and learned more about his culture and family, one that I am part of and proud to be. My dad was raised in a loving family. He instilled in us a love of family, integrity, and education. Dad was kind and generous, but not a pushover. He was never one to be taken advantage of. He was an amazing businessman. It came naturally to him. He was honest and hardworking, and a handshake was better than a written contract. He was a true entrepreneur, always thinking, always reading, always learning, always coming up with new ideas. To most people, he was quiet and stern, with a loud, imposing, and often scary voice to go along with his unsmiling but watchful gaze. Nothing got past him. But to us, he was a jokester, very loud and full of life, always the ultimate host, always up for trying any new adventure. Dad wanted to travel the world. I think he visited every place he wanted to see, only missing out on visiting Russia. He would go deep sea fishing and surprise us by filling the refrigerator with fish top to bottom. Once in Las Vegas, he and my mom lined every surface of our hotel room with cups full of coins from their previous night's winnings. Adam and I woke up to a gold mine. When they were in their 40s, my parents decided to learn to snow ski. I can only say that perseverance didn't pay off this time. After a few disastrous tries, they gave skiing up for good. Dad took up golfing in his 50s and got surprisingly good. He enjoyed playing with his colleagues up into his 80s. Mom, Adam, and I took lessons and had many fun golf outings. I keep coming back to the fact that my dad loved his friends and family. He loved the Lassen Street Gang. They were and still are our family. Spending most weekends, holidays, and vacations together made for many fond and funny memories. We are three generations strong, and I think we would all agree that we shared 4 moms and 4 dads and many siblings. My dad cherished every one of you and often asked about you all. There are so many things that I'll miss about my dad, but a few come to mind. The way he loved food, any kind of food, but he definitely had his favorites. Whenever someone took him to his favorite Indian restaurant, he would bring dinner home for us. I would ask for a couple of our favorite dishes, just a couple. I am not exaggerating when I say he brought enough food for a week's worth of dinners, including me sharing with friends. He never knew moderation when it came to doing something for his family. His daily calls in his later years. As he got older, he got in the habit of calling me every morning just to check in. He always asked if there was anything I needed, how his kids were, meaning his grandkids, and if I wasn't doing anything, did I want to go to lunch? I miss those calls. Our bi-weekly lunches, or as many lunches as he could talk me into. We enjoyed talking about politics and the stock market, buying properties, and visiting his grandkids at college. We would often sneak in a Manhattan cocktail, his favorite, but my mom always busted him when he got home. I will always treasure those lunches. As I reflect on his life, I see that he lived life his way. He was blessed with a strong mind and a huge heart. He had a family he loved and who loved him. He had 4 grandchildren he never got enough of. He ended his 94 years with a good mind and good health, and I think that is something worth celebrating, but I sure do miss him. Okay, I also have a note from Roy Herbold that I'll read. He wasn't able to be here today. To Lou, Tammy, Adam, and the entire Vali Martin family. I had the pleasure of knowing and working with Jakub and Deb Construction for over 10 years on various Bank of America projects before starting my own architectural firm in 1990. It was Jakub that gave me my first project on my own for Bank of America while I was obtaining the required insurance. Being a smart businessman and mentor, he paid me before I even started the job. I was shocked. He certainly knew how to get your attention and keep it. Since he trusted me and gave me such an opportunity, I couldn't let him down and worked harder. We worked on a variety of projects together for the next 20 years or so. He taught me so many lessons in business and life just by observing his actions. He taught me to always pay my consultants first before I paid myself, like he did with me. You get their attention. Not only did we work hard, we played hard together too. Our weekly golf for years at Tustin Ranch Golf Course and Coyote Hills Golf Course, sushi lunches, countless Ducks hockey games, family get-togethers, he made my wife, Janet, and I feel like family. Thank you, Jakub, and we'll see you down the road. Roy W. Herbold, Jr. Okay.
Excellent.
Thank you.
Yes.
Thank you.
Thank you, Tammy. That was great. I'm supposed to introduce Rod now, but Tammy mentioned a couple things that really spurred to mind. I'm going to just jump on. I'll let you guys know, I never introduced myself. My name is Scott Shellhammer. I've worked for Deb Construction since 1999. Adam and Tammy hired me. Jake, I believe, was in India in 1999 or at some point for a several-month period. So when he came back, I can still remember my first ever interaction with Jake was his voice. I heard him long before I met him or saw him down the hallway. What the hell is going on here? Just the playfully aggressive, and I've really learned a lot from that. Tammy mentioned Russia. I was just talking with my wife. We realized we had offered and were in the very beginning stages of wanting to go with him to Russia in 2008 or 9, right after my wife and I got married. Maybe it was 9 or 10. And of course, it never happened. The economy, all that stuff, you guys know what happened in 2008 and 9. But, and then secondly, I'll let you guys know that I've helped Jake deliver a lot of that food that Tammy was talking about. I have an okay-sized SUV, and it literally would not hold the food. The proprietor of the Indian food company, our restaurant we were at, would come out and say, okay, how are we going to do this and keep it level? And it was quite a challenge. So that was another fun challenge. So anyways, with... Let me move this on here. Is that I'd like to introduce Rod Torrio. Is a great family friend of Jake and Adams and Tammy. Put together a video. I'm sure will tell you a little bit about behind it. I'm sure there's a lot behind the video. So Rod Torrio.
Well, let me start by saying, Scott, I too was very blessed in being able to deliver food. So, my name's Rod Trujillo. For those that don't know me, I met Adam and the Vali family about 20 years ago in YO, which soon went on to YPO. While Adam and I are complete opposites, what was interesting as I worked on this project was how close we actually were. And it was clear it was just because Jake had instilled some values that I had pretty hard in my core as well. So I'll kind of tell you a quick story. It's not going to be long. Adam was, I think, turning 55. It was his birthday, and I said, okay, how can I give Adam and his family a gift that, one, show my love, and two, endures time? So I'm thinking about it, and I said, well, I think I have an idea. So I mentioned Adam. I said, hey, for your birthday, you pretty much have anything you want. I can't think of anything to get you besides a cocktail and a cigar, but that's easy. So I said, I'm developing some questions, and I'd like to pick up your dad and videotape him. And if anybody knows Adam, I'm a busy guy, he's a busy guy, and the next thing you know, I think 6 months goes by, and he's like, dude, the video's ready every week, because I talk to him at least once a week. Hey, the video camera's ready. Finally, I'm like, oh, geez, I better get this done. So I, unbeknownst to me, and Adam has said this numerous times, and it's true, The more you put into something, the more you get back. And so, ironically enough, it was this thought of, hey, if I can videotape all these questions that I have, and I think I showed some of them to Adam, then the grandkids will be able to know who Jake Vali is. So it was this thought of just being present so we could see who the man was. Now, I got to tell you guys though, I just sold my business 3 months ago. It was a huge success. And please take my Hollywood career and my editing and my producing lightly. I should have contacted this man from the very beginning. And so just bear with it. All right. Lastly, I just want to share a couple of things. It was 2 or 3 years that I picked Jake up. I'd pick him up in the morning. A lot of times I'd see Lou in the morning, and every time Lou would put his clothes out and he'd be dressed, like Adam, or, ready to go to the office, and he'd grab his hat and I'd help him put in the car, and every single time he'd say, "Are you being a good father?" And I'd say, "I'm trying, Jake." And he'd go, "Well, I don't know. Last time we talked about this and you said this." And so it was just who Jake was, and it was beautiful. One of the things that as I looked back and I was kind of preparing this to say something, he was deep rooted in, always our conversations ended up in religion. And his thought was, hey, religion, no matter who it is, it's a lot of the same teachings that you teach to your family, and everybody should be like. And he'd always end up, that when he was a young kid, he went to a Jesuit school, so he understood who Jesus Christ was and what his teachings were. So I always found that fascinating from my background. And so and I'm almost done here. I'm going to give you my biggest life takeaways. There's only 3 of them. God, then family, then your neighbor. Your word is your bond. Do what you agree, regardless of outcome. Regardless of outcome. Hard work pays off. Understand the shoebox method of finances and money. And that's on one of the videos. I don't know if it's in the clips, but it's hilarious. Because you got another link where you can see it. And then my favorite clips, which I'll kind of end with, is, Jake, why did you come to California? I don't know. I got drunk. and then too, when your time is done, what would you like people to do? Place a flower on my grave. And that was witty, humble, gentle, kind, wise, generous, and Jake, who provided so much love. Hopefully you'll enjoy the video.
To take care of your family first, and then take care of your neighbors. See, the neighbors are a family also.
What early values did they teach you? They taught you religion, they taught you study. Anything else that you could think of?
Every parent, grandparents wanted each one of us to be Einstein or...
Really? So they put a lot of pressure on you.
Yes. The thing was, the 2 things. We understood the religion and education. Those 2 were very important.
It sounds to me that education is really important to you.
Very important.
For all of us and your grandkids, can you explain to them why it's so important?
Because that's how you progress. Otherwise you will left behind.
But you're a little, you strike me, you're a little like your father, because your father didn't listen to everything people told him either, right?
Yeah. And I did what I did, and I want to pass it on to my kid. The same thing my dad passed it on to me.
So can you tell me something about what you admire about your wife?
Earlier in life, she adopted, eat and cook like an Indian, which helped me quite a bit.
How did you decide this is where you wanted to start your family, that you wanted to stay in the United States?
I don't know.
Just happened.
Just got dropped probably.
Just got drunk?
I'm being honest with you.
I love it. I love it. Are you a Democrat or Republican?
I'm an independent.
Independent. And can you tell me why?
Parties try to control you. This is one of the very few countries which they have a party like independent.
And that's why you liked it.
That's why I like it. That I can do what I want to, not you. When I came to this country, it was not all smooth. There were a lot of problems. If you were white, you were okay. If you were anything but white, you had to work twice as hard. And actually, that helped me. Because I am of that type that if you can do it, I can do it better. This is one of the best countries in the world. You got a better opportunities over here
Okay.
than we have. When you start striving to earn money and it's not there,
Oh, that's hard.
your mind plays games with you. Over here, it's hard work and you can achieve anything.
Wow.
Over there, it's becoming hard work, but at one time, hard work with lot of pass-through bucks.
You basically have the American dream, your story, right?
Yeah,
It's the American
because
dream.
the main thing is the American dream with my family's teaching.
Let me ask you, what do you dislike about the American culture?
In one word, they are cocky,
Not humble.
not humble. I started with designing mostly, not construction. I was designing structure. And one fine morning, one of my friend came in, hey, I've got couple of walls to build, could you help me? I said, sure. So I designed the wall, I got the permit, and he finished it. I watched him, and it was part where I was doing in India, I mean my family. So I put two and two together, why not? Started construction. My father had taught me, don't let good people go. I did exactly what my father had told me.
Wow.
He was a different type of person. He understood people.
Now, are there any special things he taught you individually?
Yes, he said, if somebody kicks you in the ass, next time that guy is bending,
Kick him.
you kick so hard that he never gets up. That's what
That's what he said.
and don't cheat on your employee.
Don't cheat on your employees.
You know, my dad always said, if you want something, go and work for it. And that is the truest statement that you'll ever hear.
Right. Now, if I told you to choose one memory in business, what would that memory be?
The best memory I can tell you is building ATM for the Bank of America.
And do you remember how many ATMs you did? Thousands?
I think so. I was the pioneer. I started the ATM.
And so
then-
you took on the ATMs because no one else
they refused it. So they said, you take all of it. I said, yeah, I'll take all of it.
The lesson to be learned is by being disciplined and just showing up, you can beat out a lot of people.
Yeah, if they give you a time, you better be there.
But now you're retired, but semi-retired. You still work, but you're...
No, I don't work. I mean, I bullshit.
I bullshit. Your family taught you that there's no such word as can't.
Well, my family said, if somebody can do it, you can do it. And that was a very good advice.
I saw the company was number 4 in the Orange County Register. You saw that?
Yeah,
That's beautiful.
yeah.
Congratulations.
Thank you very much.
That's your legacy.
Yeah, and he's trying
Everything
for
we-
the number 1.
But everything we've been talking about was in the article.
Yeah,
Very nice. Congratulations, Jake.
thank you very much.
Can you think of one time or a memory and you saw your lessons and the outcome and how it made you feel?
Don't tell this to Adam or Tammy. They did exactly what I was doing. But every time we sat down for discussion, said, Dad, your days are gone. We are doing something new. And still he's doing the same thing I used to do.
So what you're saying is you passed along good and he got wiser.
Yeah.
That's great. Jake, what is the best memory you have with your wife?
For having these 2 kids,
You really love your family, don't you, Jake?
I try to keep them.
But they mean everything to you.
You are right there.
That's awesome. That's beautiful. So I thought we would start today with some of the thoughts you had around how to raise kids.
You bring it out in the open and you realize that being the head of the family, you say, I know it all. That is the mistake most people make. I think your kids are a lot smarter than you are.
The advice would be to ask them what they want.
That is the
Listen,
Yeah.
and then help them.
I tried to do it that way. The thing is how to guide them. Don't make them enemies. Don't say, you shithead, you don't know nothing. You say, hey, I'm learning from you. Let's sit down and talk. Teach me something. And they are not stupid, these kids. See, those are the small things. Doesn't cost you money. It costs you patience.
Did your father ever tell you good job?
No, it was very difficult to get any compliments out of them. To tell you the truth, I'm proud of my both kids. They did exactly and they did better than I did. They are not super, but they are regular kids. If somebody needs $1, they'll give it to you.
Oh,
And that's what I'm proud of. Life is a puzzle. And what you do, you take the best of everything and let the bad part go. And you got a good family.
When your time finally is done on this earth, how would you like your life celebrated?
You have time for a certain day set by the American standard, come and put a flower on my grave. As simple as I can get.
Okay, thank you guys. Thank you, Rod, for that. Very touching. I wanted to remind everybody that I know with the noises and distractions here, you guys can use, there's a QR code on the program. And if you don't have a program or don't know what I'm talking about, don't know what a QR code is, maybe we ask your kids. But there's a program over here. Please, you could watch that at your leisure. I'm sure that would be great. Right now, Adam Vali, his son, is going to come up and say a few words. So welcome, Adam.
Derek, need a fresh one? All right, so first of all, thank you all for coming. I'm going a little bit off script because this morning I wanted to read a brief post from a gentleman by the name of Mike Reuter. It appeared in my leadership feed this morning, and it's entitled Your Greatest Investment. So when something like this shows up in your inbox on a day like today, I've learned to take notice of it and kind of go off, take it seriously, go off script, and just read it to you. So I just wanted to read this very, very briefly. These flowers are taking over. There we go. There we go. Time's fragility and preciousness is well known to those who value love and treasure life. Its reminders surround us on clocks, phones, and the calendar's weeks, months, and years. The reminders are also observed in our own lives and the lives of others. Marriages, births, anniversaries, graduations, and the passing of loved ones. You the man. Time's passing is inescapable. We want to make the most of it. In planning for our future, we question how we will spend the precious time we have remaining. Stephen Covey suggests, however, that a changed mindset in the... Let me say that again. Stephen Covey suggests, however, a changed mindset in our question should be, the key is not in spending time, but in investing in it. The question now becomes, how will we invest in our time? It is a change in the value proposition from simply doing to investing to add greater value. It's a commitment to ourselves to truly live every day of our life to its fullest. Seth Godin captures this by writing, "We're not in a race to check off as many boxes as we possibly can before we are out of time. Instead, we have the chance to use the time to create moments that matter because they connect us, because they open doors, because the moments added up create a life. May we passionately take that chance, create moments that matter, and create a life of absolute fulfillment, joy, and wonder. For ourselves, for those whom we touch and serve, it will be our life's greatest investment." I really do think that eloquently captures how my dad lived his life. And why that showed up today, I can't tell you. But I just thought I'd read that. I didn't write it, I just read it. Hold on. Okay. Normally I thank people at the end of my speeches, and the people from Deb Construction that are here know that my speeches can sometimes go on, so I'm not going to do that today. I'm going to actually start with the thank yous. So first and foremost, thanks to Jean. Jean is our human resources person at Deb Construction, who also tragically and unexpectedly lost her brother just a few weeks ago, actually about a couple months ago. And instead of abdicating this responsibility, she said, I want to actually push through it, and I want to do this for Jake, because he meant so much. So thank you, Jean. I also want to thank Laurel for the photo montage. Laurel, you were over here somewhere. There you go. I've learned to delegate through Laurel because she does things so much better than I ever could. So thank you, Laurel, for taking all what Tammy and I put together and just made it look pretty. You did an awesome job. Thank you so much. And a special thanks to Rod and Julian. Julian's here. Raise your hand, Julian, for preparing the video. What started out as a quick, hey, Rod, maybe you can just videotape a couple of moments with my dad so his grandkids could know kind of who he was, turned into over 40 hours of video Which I was not invited to, by the way. I mean, it was right there across the hallway. I could see him in there. And I said, Rod, what the hell's going on? I mean, I asked for 2, and Rod kept on saying, I'm learning so much. I look forward to this every week. And it turned into over 40 weeks of, I think, some of the best moments that my dad had in the later stages of his life. So, Rod, thank you so much. You're the guy. Okay, so Tammy did an amazing job with her speech. We had the video, and again, sorry the sound's not so great. We knew that'd be a problem, so luckily we created some QR codes for you. I'd like to turn this into what it truly is. So many people say we're going to have a celebration of life, and then it's a rather dreary affair. So I'm hoping to turn this into a celebration. So first of all, cheers. Thank you for coming.
Cheers. Jake.
To Jake. So I thought, speaking of to Jake, Stephanie, I thought we should, if you remember the old Bob Newhart game, every time we mention the word Jake, we all take a drink. I was supposed to speak first, and we all would have been hammered by this point. So, the apple doesn't fall far from the tree, does it? There you go. So the most difficult thing about putting this eulogy together is trying to edit down 94 years of a rich, dynamic life into just a few stories. Each rabbit hole I go down branches off into countless other stories that are just as telling or entertaining as the one I just told. So I hope if you hear something today that triggers a fond or a funny, significant, meaningful memory that you have of my dad, you'll find the courage to share it with all of us here today. Because this is your last chance. Well, it's not your last chance, but for us all to be together. So hopefully you find the courage to talk. So let's launch into it. Celebration of my dad's life. So Finn, Taylor, don't listen to this next part.
We're listening, all right? Stop listening.
So Tammy alluded to this in her talk. There's no other way to say it. My dad was a juvenile delinquent.
Wait, what?
I told you not to listen, Finn.
I'm listening anyway. Up
What?
in the air. Look up in the air.
Oh, these are the jets we hired. The Blue Angels are coming. That's cool.
I thought they were a helicopter.
They'll be coming by later. You can have rides. No, not really. Okay. My dad was truly a juvenile delinquent. He was thrown out of school so many times that his parents could not even buy him back in. And they tried, and they were a wealthy family. He smoked since he was like 10 or 11 years old. He literally stole books from the library to sell them on the street corner. He took the money and bought cigarettes. Titan of industry, right? Maybe this is why he didn't tell us much about his early childhood. He was very private about that. As Tammy said, he was the 10th of 11 children. So you mothers out there, think about that. 10th of 11 children. There were 7 brothers and 4 sisters. From my many visits to India, I learned that my grandparents, who I never met, unfortunately, but I learned from them, they believed in 4 things: family, education, religion, and of course, business. Just not always in that order. All of my dad's brothers, who were my uncles, were engineers, doctors, businessmen, and there was one devoutly religious brother to make up for the other 6. Every family needs one. As Tammy said, all his sisters were educated. And back in the 1950s in India, 30s, 40s, and 50s, that was highly unusual but that's how progressive his mother and father were. My dad and his younger sisters were and his younger sister, his only younger sister, were the only ones to leave India. She settled in Manchester, England, and my dad chose better. Look around you. I've never said this on my trips to India, but I think my dad was the smartest of the bunch. Again, look around you. Like I said before, I learned about my dad's early years when I took him back on trips to India, and that was my true privilege to be able to do that. As he got a little bit older, he, not even that much older, but he really needed somebody to kind of be there with him, kind of as a security blanket. Once he got there, he was freaking nails. He was a rock star. But just getting him there was a bit of a challenge. But if I was doing it, if I said I'll go with you, then he said I'll go with you and we'll have a good time, and we always did. But I always learned stuff because, again, he's a very private man about his own personal life. So one of my dad's, it's actually his nephew, Zoeb, owned a construction company. So Zoeb was the son of one of the older brothers, and my dad was the youngest brother. So they were actually only 4 years apart. So his nephew was only 4 years younger than him. So they became great friends. And Zoeb's life mirrored my father's. He has a construction company, passed it off to his kids. You know, his son is running the construction company. Anyway, and this had been a company that was on its fourth generation in India. The construction company was on the bottom floor, the offices, and above where the families lived, because they own the home building. So what would happen is, for hours we would sit in that office where Zoeb said that he was working. Working, yeah, remember that word. While friends from the 1930s and 1940s would drop by to say hello. Each would tell me a story about my dad that invariably began, "You can never repeat this. But one time your father..." There's always lots of laughter about that stuff. Like that. Then after dinner, we'd go back down to the office, and then the bottle of scotch came out. And for Muslims, this is kind of a big thing. Muslims don't drink. But the bottle of scotch would come out. And then the stories got hysterical. And invariably got louder. So one of the stories, I'm going to share you just a couple of little stories. Zoeb, again, was his best friend in India. Zoeb actually was missing a part of a finger. He'd missed that upper digit. And he came up to me one time and he said, "I'm missing my finger." I'm like, "Yeah, I can see that, Zoeb." He's like, "Your father took this from me." I'm like, "Okay, there's a story here, Zoeb. What happened?" He's like, "Well, we were riding this motorcycle and it crashed and I lost this part of my finger. I am now a man with one digit less." And I said, "Well, who was driving the motorcycle?" And they both pointed at each other. And to this day, I don't know who was driving the motorcycle. But on those other trips back to India, my dad would always request in his later life to visit mosques. He wanted to do kind of a circuit around. There were like 4 or 5 different mosques that they would visit in order, and it had a religious significance for them. And Zoeb would always come up to me and say, "You know, I want to do this trip with your father because we're really not very good Muslims. But today we'd like to be a great Muslim." And the funniest part that would always happen was when we would get to one of the mosques or one of the orphanages or one of the schools, they always would make a huge donation to feed the children or to educate the children. And Zoeb and my dad never fought until it came to the point of who got to hand over the donation. And these two guys would go at it. And it was like watching two people trying to do the best they could for the less fortunate every freaking time. And I once tried to intercede, and Zoeb's son, who's my good friend Amu, put a hand on my chest and said, "This is not your fight. Let them do what they want to do." So that's kind of a theme in my father's life, is do what you can for those less fortunate and count your blessing because you can. Do it without fanfare. Do it not for the recognition. Do it simply because it's the right thing to do. And then the bottle of scotch would come out again. Hold on. So, let's progress a little bit further down. My job here is to kind of give you a little context about my dad's life. Excuse me, dry mouth. So my dad first came to America in 1953 to get his master's degree in structural engineering from the University of Minnesota. He came with an undergraduate degree from the University of Karachi, Pakistan. Let that sink in. Karachi, Minnesota. That is a quite, what? Golden Gophers. By the way, one of the only schools I applied to, I'm like, my dad's an alumni, I got this, turn me down flat.
Stanford wasn't such a bad thing.
So it's unclear to me how my dad ended up in Southern California after he graduated. He, again, never gave me a straight answer. I believe his plans were to get a PhD in structural engineering. But somehow he ended up here. My theory is that the friends he made at the University of Minnesota told him to come back with them to their home state, California, which was nothing like Minnesota. I'm guessing that my dad, who always wanted to see as much of the United States as possible, took a flyer, and he came west. So he came to California after Minnesota. In 1956, he met my mom. The PhD from Minnesota went out the window. That was done. After going back, though, to India to inform his family of his plans to marry a girl from Newport Beach, and my mom grew up over there on 28th Street? 28th Street. The first house on 28th Street. So he decided to go back to India and tell his family, hey, I'm going to marry this girl from Newport Beach. Told them, started making his way back to the United States. In England, he ran into visa problems, and not just visa problems, serious visa problems. This is a different time. Those problems stretched to almost 2 years. During that time, they wouldn't let him work, they wouldn't let him go back to India, and they wouldn't let him go to the United States. What he ended up doing was taking menial jobs, such as sweeping up the London Tube subway stations for 2 years. A highly educated man. He did whatever he could to survive. By the time my mom was able to make it to London to get married, she says he was in pretty rough shape. But they did get married in London on September 30th, 1959. On February 19th, 1960, my dad entered the port of New York City aboard the luxury liner SS United States. They did not have luxury accommodations on that passing. Here's an interesting fact. In that year, only 2 people from India were allowed in the United States. He was one of them. He became a citizen on December 17th, 1965. The legend in our family is that the judge who administered the test could not think of a question that my dad did not know the answer to. In fact, then my dad started asking the judge some questions. That brings us back to Southern California, where Jake and Lou, that's what they're known as, Jake and Lou, decided to begin their life together. After living for a time in Buena Park, my parents moved us to Los Alamitos. Across the street, now get this, across the street from one of the guys from Minnesota who convinced my dad to come to California. He became my Uncle George. So imagine now, my parents know somebody, a college buddy, they're moving across the street. It has now turned into an instant block party. Since my mom and dad, or especially my dad, didn't really have family in the United States, they decided to create family here. While there are only 2 parents still with us from that street, from Lassen Street, many of their children are here with us today. So if you could please, the Lassen Street gang, the kids, raise your hand. That was really the deepness of the relationships that my parents created with those families, that they're still here today. In fact, one of them likes me so much, he keeps on moving onto the same street I live in. I don't know where Wade is. Back in the back, there's Wade. We were literally next door neighbor. He lived next door to me on Lassen Street for 20 years. And then when I moved to Newport, we ran into each other and he's like, what street do you live on? I'm like, oh, Port Abbey. He's like, I live on Port Abbey. And it's like, okay. You were there first, but I was born first. My fondest memories of my childhood were the thank God it's Friday parties. Every week. The party rotated between 4 different families, and again, their kids are here today. The kids played in the street until it got dark, then came inside to make blanket forts and watch TV upstairs. It was always pizza or burgers were served. Looking back, our parents were brilliant. They knew exactly where their kids were, which freed them up to have cocktails until we all stumbled home. My dad was a teacher. First and foremost, he was a teacher. He recognized talent and he knew how to make the most out of it. At an early age, and Tammy maybe remembers this better than I, but I'm going to say I was probably like 7 years old, maybe 8. He taught us how to make the perfect martini. So imagine an 8-year-old that needs a step stool to make it up to the little wet bar, which every house in the 70s had, to make follow precise directions about how to make the perfect martini, and then send us off amongst all the other parents. Can I make your martini? Can I make you a martini? Would you like a gimlet? I'm learning how to make those too. There were the usual ups and downs, and that's part of life. But overall, things were good. We learned the value of education, hard work, and we had fun. We had a lot of fun. Drink them if you got them. Now this brings me to now Jake the businessman. And I'm not going to go too deep into this because Scott's going to go a little bit further. He was the principal engineer of a couple of different companies before he started his own consulting engineering company named Vali Associates. I'm very proud of that name. He actually asked Tammy, myself, and my mom what we should call him. We came up with all these different names, and he already knew what he was going to call it. He was just listening to us. I was like, yeah, okay, run. Vali Associates. In 1974, he formed Deb Construction as a second job. And now things get interesting. Deb stands for designer, not design, engineer, build, but designer, engineer, and builder. He had 3 partners. My dad was the engineer. He had an architect, a building designer, and he had a builder who was a general contractor. So the 3 of them formed up and formed Deb Construction in 1974. My dad is now 48 years old. He's got 2 young kids. This better work. And luckily it does. If you know my dad, there was never any doubt. My dad eventually did buy out the other 2 partners, actually not eventually, fairly quickly, because they didn't share his same work ethic and values. My dad used to quote me a couple of things. He quoted it a lot to Tammy and me. One of the things he used to say is, if you do what you love, you'll never work a day in your life. And he did what he loved. He never worked a day in his life. Now, as to his kids, he was always a little bit more severe. He used to quote me Thomas Edison all the freaking time. The quote he said was from Thomas Edison, genius is 1% inspiration and 99% perspiration. Get your ass in gear. Do the work. You're still listening, Finn? So, just a couple of quick stories, just to show you kind of a little bit of how my dad ticked. Imagine yourself on Christmas Eve. Probably about 1 o'clock, 2 o'clock in the afternoon, and you get a phone call from one of your clients that says, hey, a car just drove through the front of a Bank of America. I need you to come out and board it up and make it safe on Christmas Eve. Much to my mother's chagrin, my dad says, go out to the garage, find any scrap lumber you can find, put it in the truck. We're going out to, I think it was the City of Industry or something. It was way out there. And we're going to service our clients. Now that part is understandable. You would understand that if you knew my dad. Now, what gets weird is we drive up to the place. There's literally a station wagon that drove in basically into the branch, and they backed it out. He leaves me and says, you start sweeping up. I'm going to go find materials to fix this gaping hole in this building on Christmas Eve. Now, this is before Home Depot had 24-hour service. So I'm sweeping up, I'm pulling up all the glass, I'm trying to get it ready. I have no idea how we're going to do this. And here comes my dad with a guy with sheets of plywood, a skill saw, and an extension cord. And I'm like, and he goes, I'm here to help. How do you find these people? But my dad had this talent. He had this superpower where the guy was like, I'm here to help. Your dad said you needed help, and so I'll do whatever you guys need me to do. And that stuck with me, and we actually made it back for Christmas Eve, luckily, to much of my mom's happiness. But to me, still to today, I don't know how that you could persuade somebody to spend a complete stranger's Christmas Eve helping you do that. But my dad did that. Eventually, Tammy and I did join him in the construction company in the late 80s. Tammy is a USC architectural graduate, myself with a degree from construction management from Stanford. Again, my dad was not a dumb guy. Just like making the martinis. He's like, if I'm going to bring you into this business, I want you to be very well prepared. And he really couldn't have done any better than the 2 schools that he sent my sister and I to. And for that, I'm always eternally grateful to him for. Let's skip forward a little bit now. In his mid-60s, Tammy referred to this again, he took up golf. A little bit late for most people to be taking up golf. But he said he wanted to play with his family. He wanted to have a sport where he could be with his family and for clients. Always clients. Always, how can I serve my clients? How can I show them a good time? Now, his partner at Deb Construction at that time was a gentleman by the name of Stan Christensen. Stan taught me everything I know about construction. He was a really good golfer, and he offered to teach my dad. So my dad, as usual, threw himself into this challenge. Small rabbit hole. When Stan passed away, I was honored to be one of the pallbearers for Stan. And at the end of the ceremony, Stan's nephew came up to me and said, I just want to tell you something. I've never met you before, but I just want you to know that my uncle, Stan, said the only person he ever trusted in business or in life was your dad. And that's always stuck with me. So anyways, Stan teaches him to play golf. My dad goes out every week to play golf with clients or friends, sometimes me. So Tammy and I decided the perfect gift to give to my father for Father's Day is a set of golf clubs, a new set of golf clubs. When we were really young, we didn't have a ton of money, but we're going to do this. We all chip in. We get him a nice set of golf clubs. He likes them, uses them for a couple of years, but eventually he decides that he's good enough to buy himself a new set of custom golf clubs. Okay, I get that. So I, being kind of not as much means at that point, I said, hey, Dad, those golf clubs that Tammy and I got you, that's a pretty nice set too. Can I have those? Yeah, you can pay me for those. You can buy those off me. I'm like, whoa, wait a minute, whoa. I paid for half these. You're gonna sell them to me? And he's like, yeah, they're mine. And I really can't think of a better way to end this eulogy than to share that story. That's how an entrepreneur thinks. And my dad was a great entrepreneur. He was an even better father. I'm going to miss him terribly. He taught us all a lot. So, to Jake. Cheers.
Thank you, Adam. I'm a bullet point type of guy here. These guys memorize things, and Tammy gets to read everything beautifully. I just wanted to say, I met Jake in 1999, like I mentioned. I'm an employee of Deb Construction. It did ring true a couple things that Tammy said about I started off as an employee and quickly became a friend. I'll get to that in a little bit. I do want to tell one story taking over and picking up 1990, maybe it was 2000, 2001, where Jake was mentoring me. So the traditional mentor, that's your boss, that's your boss's dad, right? I'd got myself in some hot water on a project and had to switch millwork contractors to L&N fixtures. I'll never forget this. And I'm sure Jake had mentored me, and I had just made a call to Silvio or maybe Dick at that point and worked out all the details. This is on a construction project, figuring out, okay, we have a lot of details to go through, and you're behind schedule because you're switching contractors for one reason or another. Submittal, shop drawings, a timeline, get it all planned out. And we had it all planned out, and I hung up the phone. And I still recall to this day, this is 20 years later, like either it was a minute later, I was walking out of my office, or Jake walked in. Did you call Ellen yet? Yeah, Jake. Oh, it worked. We have it all figured out. We have a plan in place. If we do X, then Y, and we have a whole plan worked in place. He's like, let's call him. Let's call him right now. And I remember being mortified. Like, I just called him. I just hung up. Let's call him right now. That's Jake being the playfully aggressive Jake. And of course, everything worked out. There's no true punchline in that story. Either it was Silvio or Dick got back on the phone again, went through all the questions. I'm sure Jake had said, well, you'll do it. You'll beat it. You'll beat this guy. Whatever you told Scott, you'll beat it. Yeah, no problem. So anyways, I'll never forget that. And you could just repeat that for the next 20 some years. Shortly after that, I would say shortly, in my mind it was shortly, it might have been forever, that we had shifted from mentorship to friendship. And Jake and I would carpool to lunches. He had a tragic accident actually in 2004. 2004 had an accident where he could not drive anymore as well, so our lunches became even more common as we're carpooling to projects and would drive back and forth. And we would hit the gamut. I think Adam took me to my first Tommy's here in Southern California, and the hat. And I believe when he must have told Jake that this guy only eats plain cheeseburgers. That's all I ate. Jake must have taken that. This is me reflecting now. Jake must have taken that as a challenge, as this guy only eats plain cheeseburgers. So at Tommy's I had chili. I had to. So I bore with it and ate it and just loved it. From that point forward, the next 20-some years, I could tell you stories. Jake took me around the world with, like Tammy had alluded to, the food and the lunches. From Indian was the last thing actually I should mention, but it was all the great hamburger joints around here, Tommy's and the Hat, Hamburger Hamlet, stuff like that. Everywhere with carpooling, he would know some place and we would go there. And then from Greek to Armenian to Mongolian to everything. In fact, one point, Tommy's, we were pretty much regulars at 12 of the Tommy's that are around our office, which, by the way, none of them are around our office. They're all Ontario, La Habra, Fountain Valley, and then near any job site. So I had a little card I got from Tommy's, and I kept track of where they were. I said, Jake, let's go. They're opening a new one. Let's go check it out. And sure enough, we would. The reason I'm talking about lunches here is none of this was, even the mentoring thing with Silvio, it was not directed of, like, hey, Scott, here's what you do. It was, he just did it. And you would observe and actually reflect. Now that I'm reflecting on some of these things, I would just reflect on the way he was. None of it was explicitly taught. The same thing with lunches. Implied in lunches it's a break. It's a time for real connection. He didn't want to call Ellen in because he didn't trust me after I hung up the phone. He wanted to make another connection. He was reinforcing a connection he'd probably had for 20 years before with Silvio or his father and all of his relationships. I'm only fortunately, I'm only reflecting on, or unfortunately, I'm only reflecting on this now, seeing just how I can continue to learn from him going forward. And I'm sure I will continue to learn for the next 20 years of my life and career. And I'll leave off with some of the Indian dinners, Indian lunches. Again, like I mentioned, ironically, Indian was the last food he exposed me to after getting me, broken in on everything culturally around the world. When he went to Indian food, he took me to so many great places, and I alluded to earlier the deliveries. It was so great. I'm going to miss it. I don't know if I should go without saying, he's basically a regular at all those places right now too. So I've gone back to a few of them. I still need to go back to Diamond Bar. And they're asking about him. They right now are asking about him. He was a regular at these folks as we had carpooled together and gone there. And it was all about connection. Again, nothing explicitly taught to me, just the reflection and the time being together. So again, I'll continue to thankfully live this for the next 20 years, 100 years, whatever. Don't want to get too. Hey, cheers! Wait, who distracted me? Cheers! Cheers to Jake. But with that, I would say again, it was just following the life well lived and what you could learn from it. Nothing had to be explicitly taught. I didn't hear anybody tell any stories up here about him explicitly telling us anything. We would just sort of live it and see it and emulate it. So I would like to please welcome anybody up here. If anyone else has anything to say, please do. At this point, we also have a slideshow to go through, which I believe we could do that afterwards. If anybody has anything to say, feel free to come on up. Any stories? I heard a story this morning. Oh, come here, Silvio. Okay, I called him out.
You called me.
Thank you, Silvio.
I'm Silvio, the guy who's talking about. I have awesome memories of Jake and my dad. He was mentioning that Jake was, 48, 46 when he started the company? My dad was the same age. I was 18 at the time, and work ethics were very important at that time. I mean, Jake and my dad had the same values. They taught us hard. They made us work. Work never killed anybody. That was their motto, You had to work, and you had to work hard, and you had to learn. And if they hadn't been that way, I don't think I would be the person I am today, or Adam, or Tammy even. I mean, my dad came here from Italy with nothing. He learned a trade back there. And when he met Jake, they just hit it off. And to this day, Jake will always be in my heart. I mentioned Stan Christensen also, another person that meant a lot to me. They would put their arms around me and teach me and tell me that you need to do what you got to do. And they liked me because I worked hard, and my dad made me work hard. But that's the recognition I got from them, which meant a lot, The relationship that L&N has with Deb Construction is amazing. I mean, they've helped me through tough times, and they've had my back. And I really love this family. So I'm here today because I want to honor Jake, and I'm telling you this because of how much they mean to me. And they'll always be in my heart, and I always look up to Jake, and I love Tammy, I love Adam, and the whole family. Lou, I didn't get to know you that well, but I hope Jake talked about me a little bit once in a while. But I just wanted to say a few words because Scott called me out. Where is this guy? He's another guy that means a lot to me too. I've had the pleasure of knowing Scott for quite a while. He's like a son to me. So this whole family is amazing. This Deb family is amazing. And I just want to thank everybody for giving me this opportunity. I love you all. Thank you.
Thank you, Silvio. Stephanie, it's all yours. Oh, you're coming up here.
Hi, everybody. So I met Tammy on my first day of attending preschool at USC Architecture. And from then, Jake enveloped me into his heart and helped me move on forever. I'm sorry if I'm a little emotional, but Jake was always super kind to me, not only as a roommate of Tammy's and a fellow Trojan of Tammy's, and some of you, sorry Adam, who aren't a Trojan family. It was a wonderful relationship that I had with him early in my life. But then I grew on to be a professional, and Jake welcomed my company into his foray, into his envelope. And because of him, my company, Phoenix Planning, has succeeded forever. We are 26 years strong, and our success is largely due because of Jake and his generosity to welcome a young architect, a young company into the foray of construction business. And we, to this day, are strong alliances with Deb Construction, and we do a lot together, and I'm grateful for that today. But Jake was always driving force of, what can you do better, Stephanie? What can we do better? So before that, before I was an adult in his mind and a business owner, I don't know where Tammy is right now, but USC has a weird way of dealing with fifth-year graduates, because if you're a USC graduate, you're still an undergraduate, but USC thinks you're a master's program or whatever, and we were going to go into master's housing, and that was not near where campus was, and Jake was, as was my mother, by the way, very concerned about us being so far away from campus and security and all those things, and so Jake was on the phone with me, because I don't know where Tammy was, but she was away, and I'm trying to figure out our housing, and Jake's like, I'll be right there, let me know what I need to do, and I'm like, it's okay, Jake, I got this. And he's like, no, I'm coming. And with Jake's, it was Jake, because he wanted his girls to be safe and have a fifth year of architecture, which was not because we were slow. It was because it's a 5-year program. But Jake said, what do you need? What do you mean? I'm like, I got it, Jake, I got it. And he was so supportive of me and of us. Mm-hmm. And I'll never forget that. And no matter what, anything else happens in my life, Jake and my affiliation with his family, mm-hmm. his beautiful daughter, and their beautiful kids, who's like a superstar over there. Jake's love of his daughter and his family washed over me and helped me become who I am and helped my company become who we are. So, thank you, Jake.
Thank you, Stephanie.
Hi, my name is Christine Rich. I was a project manager that was hired by Tammy and Adam just a little before Jake returned from his car accident that Scott talked about. Am I not loud enough? Oh, this one. Oh, I was at this one. Thanks. So I was a project manager, and I had just started. I was in the main office at the file cabinets that were up front by Marie, if you remember Marie. And I was looking for a file. And Jake had evidently returned earlier that day, and he came out and he looked at me and he said, "Who the hell are you?" Just like that. That's how I met Jake. And I said, well, I'm a project manager. I was hired by Tammy and Adam just a little while ago. And he said, well, you're making me any money? And then for the next year, he would go with me to job sites every single chance he got. And the thing that I really remember the most about Jake, we were driving, I think, on the 405 one day, and it had gotten very quiet in the car. And he was looking out the window, and we were passing by a construction site, not ours, just a site. And he just said, I really, really miss it. And so, Mr. Vali, we really, really miss you. Thank you.
Hi. Ooh, I'm Debbie. I'm probably the newest adult Vali member. Oh, you're coming up too? Okay. Anyway, my experience with Jake is he was a man that wanted perfection. He wanted what he wanted, and he would get it. And because of that, I went to India twice to get married twice, because the first time wasn't good enough and the second time was perfect. And the one thing I had known is he told me, he'd always call me Deborah. Deborah, I've got this to tell you. Deborah. Okay. And I would always sit there and listen. He'd always give me words of advice. But one of the last things he said is, like, Deborah, your children are not yours, they're mine.
What?
He's like, I will take care of your children. They are not yours. They are mine. I'm like, okay. And
What?
He did. He took very good care of Finn and Taylor. And I am sad that they didn't get to spend as much time as anyone else. And Taylor, wait, hang on. Taylor wanted to say something, so I'm going to sit down. Okay, what did you want to say? By the way, she was very emotional when she heard his voice because she's 7 and that was unexpected. Okay, go ahead. No, don't be scared. Don't be scared.
Again.
What did you want to say? Tell me what you want to say. Oh, I thought she was not shy. This is new. This is very new. Do you want to say anything or not? Tell me about your dad.
For you.
Okay.
The reason why I picked up this dress was because it makes me honor my grandfather, and it makes me feel that he loves me so much.
Did you want to say anything?
About St. Valentine's Day when the leprechaun did something for us.
Oh, all right.
Excuse me, if you haven't seen, I have to say this. One day, when we got home from something, well, on St. Patty's Day, you know the leprechaun? He gave us gifts, including one of the toys I wanted, and he also gave us rainbow-colored flowers. Now that's cool. One day, although they were bent, one day when my father died, grandfather, something happened to the flowers. Somehow, the leprechaun snuck in our house and made them straight up, like straight, for our father, like a grandfather pointing our way up to heaven.
Tell me you miss him.
But I also miss him very much.
Thank you.
I just wish he would be here to listen to this.
He is.
Okay, maybe he is.
Adios!
Okay, does anybody else want to come up, say anything? Here comes Mr. Marciano. Or is, yes, Jeff. Welcome, Jeff.
Hi, I'm Jeff. I just, over the years, I grew to know Jake. I was young in the industry. I was on the client side, learning to be a project manager. And, I would bring him on, and he would just come up with me, and he taught me some things that I didn't know, and why we do it this way, and why we don't do it that way. He was a mentor, as you've heard a lot of people say. The other thing, we talk about lunch. He introduced me to India food, and I'd never had it before, and he would take me to a restaurant. We would have lunch, and it would just be the two of us, and this food just kept coming and coming. And I would be sitting there, and I'd look at Jake, it's just us two. He goes, it's okay. He goes, if we don't eat this, he goes, you take it home and you introduce it to your wife and your family. So again, you've heard him, over and over talk about, food and love to eat and love to sit with people. The other thing that I was just learning to golf, and Jake learned to golf, and he said, let's go play golf. I said, you don't want to play golf with me. My ball goes left, or it doesn't go anywhere sometimes. He goes, that's okay. So we would go out, we would play some golf through the years, and I was comfortable. If I didn't have a good day, it was okay. As we got more and more further in the relationship and working, it really touched me. Adam and even Tammy, mentioned, hey, we have a golf tournament coming up. I was part of the chair group on it, and he goes, my dad wants to golf with you. And I said, wow, I'd love to. So I was able to golf with Jake when he could, even if we got 9 holes in. During the tournament, it was okay. It was just, it meant a lot to me that, hey, he wanted to play with me, even though I sucked at it. But that's Jake. So I left my drink there, and I said Jake 5 times, and nobody lifted a glass. So I need to see 5 drinks. But again, thank you, Tammy and Adam, for including me in this day. Very special. But thank you, guys.
Thanks, Jeff. I do have one more story. My bullet points go out the window when you're up here talking, but one of them is Adam had mentioned of this. And I could translate it into the lunches. Is trying to pay for lunch too. That was a non-starter. However, I have a trick for you guys, and I got it over once. If I got anything over on Jake, and we'll have fun with him right now, is I bought him a gift cards from Tommy's. Like a bunch of gift cards. He would not accept them, of course. Would never accept them. And he would actually say he wouldn't, alluding to something else Tammy said, he would stop being my friend if I ever offered to pay anything, or if he ever went around the back, try to pay for something for lunch. But the gift cards, he would not accept them, but guess where they sat? They sat in my car, and we were carpooling to all these for years on end for Tommy's. And what worked is you could pull it out as you're paying. Well, hey, look what I found. Forgot, I tried to give these to you and you wouldn't accept them, but they're in my car, and look, it's just magically, it's sitting here. So that lasted for, 5 or 6 meals or something, but it's worth it. So I'll take that as a, I don't say I got one over on, but able to respect what he was doing, but also able to show some gratitude to him for everything he gave me and gave a lot of folks here. Okay, so with that, if we have anything else, I think we have a slideshow. Again, we'll be, Barbara, come on over. Well, Barbara comes over. Barbara was the accountant, controller, whatever, when I started in 1999, accountant extraordinaire. Come on in, Barbara.
Yes, as he said, my name is Barbara, and I started working for Jake in 1988 and worked for Jake because he was the boss. And when he interviewed me, he said, "Can you come to work tomorrow?" I said, "No, I can come on Monday though." "No, can you come tomorrow?" But that's the way Jake was. And we had many good times together, and we had some arguments together, but he always knew that I could be trusted to do whatever he needed to be done as a bookkeeper. And Paul Fajita and Paul was the CPA, and he and I worked together a lot too. There are not many of you here that even knew me because I worked, retired in 2002. Lou was there, and Scott, and of course Tammy, but we've kept together all these years. They have came to my 90th birthday in December, even though we had to have a drive-by. And thank you, Adam and Deborah Construction, for all the socks that they brought. I have a special organization that I send socks to every year through square dancing, which I did for 40 years. And Adam brought over 100 pair of socks. Adam, thank you very much. That came from your dad, I know, because it was for the unfortunate people that needed socks all the time. Anyway, thank you all. I love Jake. I can't talk anymore.
Thank you, Barbara. Thank you. Okay, I think we go on to the slideshow now if there's not anyone else who'd like to say anything. And we'll continue the celebration. Again, thank you for everybody for coming, for helping us celebrate Jake's life. I know he had a lot of impact on a lot of folks here. So thank you, or everybody.